All right, we're back. Luke chapter 20, and we're finishing up the chapter. So just kind of briefly going through what we've covered. This has been a chapter of conflict here. It started, if you remember, with Jesus teaching them, and after cleansing the temple, they confront him by what authority. He exposes them for the frauds, and then he tells a parable of how really a prophecy of what's going to happen to them for rejecting him and rejecting all the servants that God has sent to them, that they will be destroyed, and the vineyard, that's Israel, God's people, will be given to others. And they're shocked and appalled at that. They know, if you remember in verse 19, they perceived that he had told this parable against them, but they feared the people. So there's this, he's exposing them, and then they counterattack now with their tests, if you remember. Remember what were some of the trick questions they asked him in the second part of chapter 20? What were some of the trick questions they gave him?
Should we pay taxes to Caesar?
Shall we pay taxes, Caesar? And Rob, why was that why was there in a sense no good answer to be given for that question?
Well, if he says no, don't pay him, now he's in trouble with the Romans as far as being treasonous. And if he says pay him, yes, pay them, to the people who are oppressing you, he's in trouble with the Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, he's either going to get in big trouble with the Romans, which they would prefer, or he's going to lose some support. But he turns it against them and shows render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, render to God the things that are God's, and they have not been rendering to God the things that are God's. That was the whole point of the parable. They've not been giving the master his fruit, what belongs to him, and they've been unfaithful. And that's really what this is about. This isn't about Caesar, it's about God, and you're not being faithful to him. The Sadducees come, and they have their own trick question. It's more designed not so much to get him in trouble as it is to make him look stupid. And what was their question about, if you remember?
Wasn't that if a brother dies and his brothers marry his widow, whose wife will she be in the resurrection?
Yeah, in the resurrection, she's had seven husbands with no kids with any of them. Whose wife is she going to be? It's a silly question, but again, it's designed to try to make him look stupid, um, as he tries to explain. But he just thoroughly rebukes them and tells them, "Look, it's not the resurrection is not a continuation of this life. It's altogether different." Um,
Hmm.
And so when we talk about they cannot die anymore, we become like the angel, like sons of God, the glory that will be ours. So marriage is not in that resurrection. Although, of course, when we read the Bible, we know that there is marriage in the resurrection. What is the marriage that all marriages are pointing towards?
Marriage to the Lamb between
Yeah.
the church and the Lamb.
Yeah. Remember the wedding of the Lamb in the church. It's like that's what this is all pointing us toward. And then he concludes, he shows them from the law itself that God is the God of the living, not of the dead, and that he identifies himself as the Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, shows that they live to him, even though they are dead, yet they live. Um, and then they stop asking questions. Then he asked them a question about whose son is the Christ's. I mean, how can they say that Christ is David's son when David calls him Lord? Again, confronting their expectations. They were expecting the Christ to be like David, the great king, that Christ would be his son, would be take after his father and be like him. But David does not uh, look at the Christ as his son. He looks at him as his Lord, someone who is far greater and before him, not someone who is a descendant like him. And so that's where we left it off last time. And now we have one last word of warning that Jesus gives to all the people. So let's pick it up
Just
there.
just just coming back to one more thing here. that last verse that you mentioned, where he calls David, he mentions David saying Lord of the Messiah.
Yeah.
It's just one more thing where Christ is claiming deity. We've mentioned it before. All those passages that refer to Daniel 7, where the Messiah comes to the Ancient of Days.
Yeah.
There's the one where the whole idea of a bridegroom and the Old Testament sees God as the bridegroom and the nation of Israel as his wife, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so when Christ starts referring to himself as the bridegroom, or John the Baptist refers to him as the bride, these are all the Daniel 7 references. This reference you just met, they are all claims to deity.
Yeah.
And they may get past us, but to an informed Jew, they get the connection. This guy is claiming to be deity. It's not going to sit well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love this verse too, is what the Lord said to my Lord. Here we have two that are called Lord. And if I said that, that's not nearly as significant as David saying, because he's the king. He has no Lord on this earth. There is no one above David on this earth.
Mm.
And so for him to look to someone else other than the Lord, but now he has this other Lord, there are two that have authority over David. There are two lords, if you will, is a profound thought. He has other passages where he says, he has two gods. God, he talks about God, your God, is, I can't remember how it goes, but I think it's Psalm 45, but where we have two that are referenced as God. Here we have two referenced as Lord. So even in the Old Testament, that doctrine of the Trinity is being woven into these passages. And so it's really fascinating. Again, if I had said, the Lord said to my Lord, well, there are plenty of authorities above me in the world. There are plenty of authorities over me, but there's no authority over David in this world.
Right.
So that's pretty profound.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's pick it up where we left off here. Verse 45 to 47. Elizabeth, would you start us off here and read that paragraph for us?
And in the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love greetings in the marketplace and the best seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at feast, who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation.
Okay. He doesn't mix words here. There's no parables this time.
No.
He lays it out straight to all the people. And notice in the hearing of all the people, he makes this claim here. He speaks to his disciples, but everyone can hear him. He gives them a warning. Beware of whom?
Scribes.
Yeah, who are the scribes?
Pharisees.
They are linked with the Pharisees. Yes, these are the
lawyers.
The lawyers. These are the teachers of the law. So you have the Sadducees, which are the priests, and they're the ones serving in the temple, and they're pretty corrupt. And they're the ones that were questioning him about the resurrection. But the scribes these are the experts of the law, the teachers of the law, Moses, along with the Pharisees, the lawyers. They all kind of in this group together. They're the ones who sit on Moses' seat. If you remember, they have authority. They're the teachers of Israel here. And why does he say, beware of them? What does he tell us about them? Well,
they put on a good show and like to hold themselves in higher esteem above everybody else, but yet they're scum.
so they walk around in long robes. What's the significance of walking around in long robes?
Well, the length of the robe signified I don't know, authority or
Your position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know like a king would often, the length of his robe would determine his dominion over how much authority he had. I wonder if I have a note on the long robes here. I'm going to just try to find something real quick here. If I have something in my study Bible on long robes. Um,
Ezekiel 6 says that that robe filled the temple.
Yes, but it clearly these are, it's sort of like it's a sign of authority, a sign of honor. It's like, you can kind of see it in a church if you go to a liturgical church that where they have all the vestments and the robes, and the higher the person is, the more ostentatious their decor. I know, for example, um, like if you go to graduation, you can tell who the most educated people are. They have different robes and different frills they put on as bachelor's degree is just a black robe, but then if you get a master's, you get a different color and a different hat and different vestments, and as they get bigger and bigger, they get the clothing becomes more garish and more um, busy, if you will, just lots of stuff on it. Or like a general with all the medals and honors and stuff like that, all their patches. But so this is a show of honor for them. They love to walk around in their robes. What else do they love?
Front row.
Yeah, they love the greetings and the best seats.
And the flowery prayers.
Yes. The places of honor. They make long prayers. What does it mean for a pretense?
A showing.
Yeah. It's all show. It's not real. I mean, I know that there are plenty of, I think I told you about that TV documentary on the Losing Our Religion about these pastors who don't believe. I mean, literally don't believe in God. And yet they make their prayers. They offer prayers for the people. It's a pretense. They're just pretending. They're putting on a show. They really see themselves as the word hypocrite is perfect for them because hypocrite means actor. And so they have their costume and they have their script. They make their long prayers. They're playing the role. They're making their speeches. And for pretense, they make long prayers. Even that the long prayers part of it. Why? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What's the sig?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, why long prayers?
For a show, it says for a pretense. Oh, you, I don't hear you.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. So why do they make long prayers?
He's
Why not
showing.
It's all show, right? I mean, if I do a short prayer, I'm not going to have the audience, and somebody might miss it. But if I do a nice, long, loud, passionate, eloquent prayer, oh, people will be impressed. In fact,
Mhm.
I know. I mean, there are places where you can, somebody gives a prayer. It's poetry. It's like eloquent, and you get praise for it. People are like, "Oh, that was so moving, so touching. That was amazing." But if you remember, the most powerful prayer that is recorded in Scripture is that gets immediate supernatural results in the Old Testament. If you remember, is the prayer of Elijah, where he just, after all the prophets of Baal have been pleading with their gods for hours, he just gives like two sentences: "Lord, hear my prayer, remember me, and turn these people back to you." And boom, fire falls from heaven. There's no show.
That's a great passage. You go, scream louder, maybe they're sleeping.
Yeah. Maybe he might be on the toilet for all we know. It's a great scene.
I thought of this passage about them wanting their front row seats the other day because I bought my cemetery plot and they're opening up a brand new area of the cemetery. The guy actually asked me if I wanted a front row. I told the guy, I really don't think it makes any difference.
That's funny. That is funny. Although, the prime realty for cemeteries is on the Mount of Olives. they have all these tombs up there because the belief that the Messiah, when he comes, will land first on the Mount of Olives. That's where the resurrection. They want to be the first to rise, and so
Yeah.
they lock in their places on the Mount of Olives there.
Yeah.
All these,
Well, that's where he left from. They're saying that he's
yeah,
going to come back from there.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So
I've prayed with people that just go on and on and on and repeat themselves and just go on and it's definitely a pretense that they're trying to show how worthy they are because they pray for they
yeah.
just continue to
Mm.
pray.
It can be that. I've known a lot of people too who have prayed long times, and for them it's passionate, and they sincerely believe that they will that this is what God wants us to pray and to be fervent in that. But this is much more cynical because they don't believe. I know lots of people who've prayed long periods of time, and they really feel like that's how you really connect with God is through long prayers. But these guys are not trying to connect with God at all.
Mm.
They are praying in such a way it's only to get attention. They're not expecting any answers to these prayers. They don't expect anything. They don't even believe that God is there listening or has any interest. It's all for show. It's all to show. Jesus warns against the remember in Matthew is it chapter 6 where he teaches them about prayer, and he gives them the two warnings of how not to pray. And the first warning is don't pray like the hypocrites who pray to be seen by men. And then he says, and don't pray like the pagans who think they'll be heard for their many words.
Mm.
So that those are two warnings. It's like, your father knows what you need. You don't need to repeat yourself again and again and again and again and again, thinking that that will move him to do something he doesn't want to do. That's how the pagans pray.
I
We
thought
come,
we were supposed to be persistent.
yes, be persistent, but it's not the difference is the way the pagans pray is he says they think they will it's a repetitious, they think they'll be heard for their many words. It's more superstitious. So it's like if I say like the prophets of Baal did, they oh Baal hear us, oh Baal hear us, oh Baal hear us, oh Baal hear us,
right.
kind of like that kind of thing, not coming to God and then offering your prayer and then coming back the next day and offering it again and keep coming. That's persistence. It's this repetition that somehow there's like it's like an incantation or a mantra, something that is will manipulate the gods to do something for you.
Right.
That's how the pagans pray. The pagans pray with the assumption that their gods, are not interested in them, and they need to be nagged and somehow coerced into doing something for them. It's the way that you treat, a government bureaucrat. You got to nag them until they do something for you because you know that they don't want to. But we come to God as our Father in faith, believing that He wants to bless us, and so we ask and we keep asking until He gives us an answer of some kind, whether a yes or a no. But that's a very different approach. But anyway, I want to stress that these guys are not even like pagans in that these are empty prayers. They know they're empty. It's all for show, for a pretense. They make their long prayers. And I grew up with this a lot, being in the Methodist Church, and there's so much pretense because there's so much unbelief. And these pastors have been trained. They don't believe anything, but they come and they have to put on their show and they prepare these eloquent prayers. They suddenly start speaking, Old English, the these and the thous and such, and they they really it's almost intimidating to listen to their prayers because it's so high level in language and poetry. But they do that. But all the while, they're walking around in their long robes and getting all the honor and the greetings and making these long prayers. What are they doing in the midst of all that?
And evil.
What specifically evil?
Take advantage of widows and yeah,
Yes, devour widows. houses. In the midst of all this show, they are devouring widows' houses. Let's talk about what that even means. What's going on there?
Well, they take advantage of the most vulnerable.
Yes. So apparently at this time, these widows, they're referencing here, typically don't have protectors now. Many of them, they don't have necessarily family looking after them. And so they trust, think about that, they trust these scribes. If anybody that they can trust, it has to be these men of God, right? And so these men of God become the executors of their estates. They're the ones who they give control of their finances to these men because they're men of God. They can be trusted, right? And so they put them, and then they use this position to take advantage of them, whether to flat out steal from them or to maybe perhaps, I don't know, perhaps purchase it from them for a much, much lower cost than they deserve, but they're full of greed. And why is the widows make this so abominable that they not only steal and take, but they take from widows?
I'm
Yeah, the widows
surprised because go ahead, Rob.
No, go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say I'm surprised because the Old Testament talks a lot about protecting the widows
Mm.
and taking care of them.
Mm.
And here they're doing just the opposite, taking advantage of them.
Yeah. Why are the widows so on God's mind that they need to be cared for? In fact, even James says that what is religion that's pure but to look after
Widows and orphans, yeah.
in their distress.
They don't have anyone to come alongside them. They're on their own.
Yeah, they steal from the most vulnerable. What do they say? It's like taking candy from a baby kind of thing. They are defenseless. They have no defenders. These widows. They're completely vulnerable. It's the way you feel about these scam artists. Now think about these scam artists that they call these homes, and they specifically try to target the elderly,
Mm-hmm.
especially those who have like Alzheimer's. My dad, when he had his Alzheimer's, in the early stages, he would get solicitations
Mm-hmm.
for things, and he would just give to them.
Kim Cummings' mom.
Yeah. And he never did that. And all of a sudden, because he wants to pay his bills, he wants to be responsible, sees something asking for something, think, oh, I must need to pay that. And
They
he
did
pays
that
it.
to my brother too, as his dementia got worse.
Yeah. And you look at these guys, and they're taking advantage of the most vulnerable who can't protect themselves. And you have to, and then as soon as he does it to one, suddenly he's flooded with, because once they get some feedback, they know we can come back to the well here. And don't think for a second that these scam artists are only working one line in one charity. I'm sure they have a dozen charities that they work off of and they can send through him. So suddenly he gets requests from everything now. And my mom would have to go out and try to get to the mail before he did. He had to rush out there, try to beat the mailman, lest he get a hold of more solicitations and start writing checks again. They do this, and how much contempt you can feel it in you, that just the disgust with these people, that they would do this. One thing to be Robin Hood and to steal from the rich and the powerful, at least you're like, all right, that's kind of a noble thing, even though it's still wrong and evil. But at least, all right, they're not going to miss it so much. But to do this,
And I've noticed this because after my husband went home to be with the Lord, and it's been 6 years, it's amazing that it's been that long, that certain things have happened since his passing that never would have happened had he been here, because he would not have allowed it. Not only did I lose my best friend and my husband, I lost my protector.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly
that's what Christian husbands do. They protect their home, their wives, and their children. And
so now, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that's when I really feel his absence, when my protection is gone.
So now
And I-
imagine your situation, Elizabeth, where you've lost your protector here, and you determine that, you know what, I need help with this, and so you go to your
Yes.
pastors of your church, looking for these are men that you respect and you trust, and then you find out that they've been stealing from you, that they've been taking advantage of you. Now, how despicable would these men be if that was
Man,
the
yes,
case, right? And that's what we're
yes.
dealing with here. These guys are the worst, and yet they are esteemed. Everyone loves them and honors them. And here Christ comes along and just pulls the curtain back and shows how despicable these human beings are. And
Mm.
they know it, and that's why he says, what's the last thing he says about them? That's why they will
There was
receive
greater condemnation.
the greater condemnation. Judgment is coming, and they're going to get it the worst because of this.
Mm.
Jesus has a real passion. What did he say about to the one who leads one of these little ones astray who believe in me? If you cause one of these little ones to sin, these vulnerable ones,
Be
what does he
better for
say?
them if there was a block tied around their neck and dropped into the ocean.
Yeah, you'd be better off just having you dumped in the bottom of the sea with a millstone around your neck than if you cause one of these little ones. The fury that God has when these most vulnerable ones are taken advantage of.
We had a neighbor that used to do that. He used to own a plumbing company, and he would brag that elderly people would call him for simple things like putting the air conditioner back in the window because they didn't know, and he'd charge them hundreds and hundreds of dollars for that.
Yeah,
It was very sad.
it's just, yeah, it's awful. It's awful. You really, at that point, it's like you've sold your soul. I mean, these are like soulless individuals who can take advantage of the vulnerable. Again, it's not like you can understand someone who maybe does evil because out of I don't know, of vengeance or desperation and need kind of thing. You can understand why someone might steal if they were desperate, or why someone might even kill if they were, if someone hurt them in some way. You can kind of understand some of these things, but this is a level of cynicism and darkness that is so devilish to go around like this. You just can't even fathom it, and demonic. It's absolutely demonic, and these men are the ones leading Israel, these characters.
Yeah, I had a situation where, I went down to visit my dad, and my stepmom had already gone home to be with the Lord. As he's driving down the road, I saw that his clock had not been changed, so I changed it to the correct time. And I mentioned that what I had done. He said, "How'd you do that?" And I told him. He said, "I went to the place I bought the car at. They said, well, you have to make an appointment. It's this long process." He said, "I can't wait to tell them tomorrow that my daughter did it in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
And they were going to have her make this appointment and bring it into the
Yeah,
dealership."
yeah.
Oh, please.
I know.
So I showed him how to do it, and I wrote it down,
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
on the refrigerator, because
That's fun.
my brother and I protected our dad.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So this is where we are. Let's start 21 now, and I think we have a scene here that I coincides with what he's just saying here. So let's take a look at that. Jack, you want to read that for us, verses 1 to 4, chapter 21.
Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And he said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on."
All right. So I want to connect this passage to what we've just been reading. He's just been mentioning about the widows here. And now we have the scene here. And so I believe Jesus is in the temple here. So Jesus sees something. What does he see?
The rich putting gifts into the offering box.
Okay, the rich putting gifts into the offering box. And then he sees what else?
The
An
widow
elderly
2 coins.
A
Small
poor
copper.
widow put in 2 small copper coins, 2 pennies, if you will. All right. And then he speaks about this.
You know,
So
that,
even that, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say that those offering boxes were actually like these metal trumpet things in the temple. That so you can hear the rich pouring and stuff, and there's a lot of chinging and changing going down there when they throw it down those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she throws in her 2 little pennies and a couple of those dings, you know.
Yeah, that's I've been at churches where they do that, where the offering is people come up to the front to give their offerings and go back to their seats, and so it's a big kind of parade as they bring their gifts up. And I can understand the doing of that, but I've really have one of the few blessings that came out of COVID was when we stopped taking the offering and just got the box in the back and people put their offering in, so there's never a show of wealth of people passing the plates and the kind of pressure to give, or where you can see
Did it
whatever.
change the amount received at all?
I actually think it went up.
I don't remember passing a plate around before COVID, did we?
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
don't remember that. I always remember the white box in the back. That's strange.
We always passed the plate before COVID.
I'm
Yeah.
amazed.
Yeah.
As you're getting old, Rob, you're forgetting things.
It is. I'm not kidding you. Things are happening since I turned 70, Bob. I've been at Elliott. I've been at MSBC for over 6 years, and so pastors telling me for 4 years we passed a plate or so, and I
Well,
don't remember it.
You don't remember that? Well, yeah, you are. No, we always passed the plate. It was the one, because I remember it was the one thing that after COVID was over, that people said, "Can we keep it like that? We really like having it like that." Because it's I love it because the guests who come and visit the church, there's never any pressure upon them to give.
Right, it's embarrassing sometimes,
Yeah.
if someone's putting in $1 and someone's
Yeah.
putting in a $20 bill.
And the thing is, it's the only thing is, yeah, when you pass the plates around, you might get a few extra bucks. But the people that support the church are going to give whether the plate's passed or not.
Yeah.
The people that really support the church. And there's, the other stuff, it's just a few dollars here and there that you may or may not get. But I found it's like, I think our giving has gone up since the time. And I love not having that. And anybody who gives, it's just a secret giving now. And most people give online now. So it's not even presenting in person anymore. But here you're right. It was like people coming in. It's a show, just like we saw before. Again, notice the connection. We have the rich and the poor widow, just like we had here before. We have the scribes with all the pretense, all their things, right? All their prayers and everything like that. And then they devour the widows. And here you have all the pretense, the rich putting in their gifts. Again, that Jesus looks up and sees this. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see them bringing up their gifts. And notice, you could see exactly how much they're putting in too. He says you could see even the 2 small copper coins. You can see the poor widow putting it in the box. Everyone can see what they're putting in. And so we have the same thing. We have this pretense. And this time it's not a pretense of prayer, but what is this pretense for the rich?
That they're doing so much more for the kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretense of generosity and doing for the kingdom. And provision for God's kingdom. It's a pretense. They're giving large amounts, but again, is it a sacrifice for them to give what they're giving? Is it a sacrifice if Elon Musk were to drop, $10 million on our church? That would be awesome. That would be great.
Oh boy, would that be great.
Amazing, right? But would that be a sacrifice for him?
No.
No, but it would be a loving gesture from his heart.
Hey, that would be great. I wouldn't reject it. But I'm saying is if he were to go off and boast about it as some great sacrifice he made, well, $10 million from me that's unthinkable. For him, who was the first trillionaire, when you do the math, that's like me losing, having an old penny drop out of my pocket.
You could say that about tithing in general.
Yeah.
People are proud of themselves because they tithe. It's good that they want to tithe and all that stuff, but for some it doesn't mean squat. For some it means you could break the bank.
Yeah, it's not that the amount does not necessarily mean, again, for people that are wealthy, a few $1,000s here is chump change.
Right.
For the poor, it's a lot. I mean, that's a paycheck. That's food on their table. And you can see this poor widow, but you can see that the Pharisees and the scribes are watching and delighting in the rich coming and giving their gifts. And they absolutely have such contempt for the poor widow who drops in 2 small copper coins. Like, who cares? And that's the whole thing, is like, what do I care if a poor widow is offended? What am I losing? If she's offended and never comes back, I'm losing 2 cents. Give me a break. Who cares? Who cares?
But isn't that in the Old Testament? Shouldn't they know that?
You're assuming that they have faith here, Teresa. You're assuming that they actually believe. Yeah, they know the Bible, but they don't believe it. There's a cynical nature to them. They have the scriptures. They don't believe it. And so they don't take his word seriously. They do what's expedient, and they know, look, we need money to keep this thing going. And so the rich, we can't offend them. They got to keep coming. The poor, we don't care. If the poor,
Yeah, it's the whole idea. It's a works mentality. Works mentality is not it's not a hard issue.
Yeah. even the Christians had to deal with that. Remember, James talks about that in his letter. He says, they're showing favoritism. So a wealthy person comes in and you give them the best seat and you make sure that they feel welcome and taken care of. And meanwhile, a poor person comes in and you tell them to go sit in the corner and you show them no special attention or care. And he says he has to tell them, don't you know that the kingdom is first for the poor? They're the ones. You should be, if you're going to cater to anybody, you cater to them. The poor widow, if you have a view of eternity, how you treat her, she's nothing now, but she's a queen in heaven. You want to honor her now, because she's the one that is closest to God, not these rich people. These rich people now, if they make it to heaven, they're peasants in heaven. They're not the rulers in heaven. It's the poor, the least. You want to take care of them. Everything's turned upside down. The last are first, the first are last, the greatest are the least become the greatest. Everything's turned upside down. You have to believe in that resurrection and believe in God's kingdom the way he's laid it out for us, for you to show such honor to the poor widow. There's nothing else motivating you to care for the poor widow except faith in God and the eternal life and the kingdom to come. There's no benefit to waste your time if all you believe is this kingdom on earth is all there is. There's no benefit in caring for the lady. That's the same thing. It's like, we do our nursing home services. It's like there's no earthly motivation to do this, to go take time out of our day to go and visit and to do a service for these people in nursing homes. They have no money. They have no strength. They have no talents. They give us nothing as far as material things go. And yet Jesus says, and God says in the scriptures, they are the most important members of your body. You need to care for them. So everything is flipped here. But the poor widow, she puts in 2 small coins. Jesus' judgment of the situation is what?
She put in more.
Yeah. The poor widow has put in more.
Gave all that she had.
Yeah. More than all of them. Because she put in all she had. And so that's an inspiring thing. Now, I think may have discussed this before, but I really like John MacArthur's take on this. He really hits this hard of this is not just a story of inspiration or to be like that widow, but it is a condemnation of the whole system here. Because you look at this system and you say, this poor widow is coming. Where is she? She's coming to the temple, to the house of the Lord. And when she leaves, she comes with a little bit and she leaves with what?
Nothing.
Nothing. So here she comes.
Francis Chan also does a good sermon on that.
Yeah. So the widow has just come to the house of the Lord and she leaves empty. She leaves with nothing.
She's filled with the Spirit, though.
Hopefully. I mean, well, Jesus, except for the praise of Christ, who puts her up and says she's put in more than the others. But you got to say, is like, what is going on with this system here? Everyone can see what's happening here and that it's allowed to happen. So the poor come and they leave poorer. It shouldn't be this way. Especially when you consider all the rich putting in their gifts. Is there no one that, again, she's not a strange widow. She's not someone they don't know. You know, that's the whole thing. It's like you can understand, well, you know, you don't want to, they're beggars on the street and you don't necessarily help them because you don't know them at all. And they're probably going to use it for drugs and things like that. And so you just, you know, these are panhandlers and so forth like that. And I get that. But this isn't a panhandler. This is someone part of their community. She's a devout Jew. She's someone that sounds like she's someone of remarkable character too. And she's going to go, and by all appearances, she's going to go home and starve, you know, unless the Lord provides another way, but he's certainly not going to provide. She's not being provided for in this house. That is an abomination here. When you think of the temple is the place where you go to receive grace and mercy, where you go there to be fed, where you go, yes, you bring a sacrifice of praise, of thanksgiving for sin, but you leave more filled, more blessed, part of a community here, experiencing the love of God. And in this situation where a vulnerable person was, whom this temple was built for, is that now walks away empty, devoured, if you will.
And the other thing is too that the widow would probably be looked down on, whereas you probably got people lining up to greet the rich person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you can see probably you can almost hear the laughter, can't you? As she's putting in her 2 pennies. Like, how pathetic is that? You know, you can, yeah, it's just oozing with contempt. And that Jesus calls her out, that you can see he sees her. And so that he's the true temple. He's the true house of God. He sees her and acknowledges her faith, and that she really is the true Israelite, the true Jew, if you will, not like these other people for all their wealth and splendor. But it's bad. This is bad. This is so decadent and disgusting, but that's the state of the temple at this time. That is why the last story that's told that leads us in to Jesus' prophecy regarding the destruction of the temple, why it is everything is coming down. Now you understand. Now you can understand why God is about to destroy this place. It's become like Sodom and Gomorrah. It really is. It's like Sodom and Gomorrah. If you remember Sodom and Gomorrah, the condemnation of this nation, according to Genesis, we saw the violence, the sexual immorality on full display. But other prophets also reference the way that they treated the poor in this place. These go hand in hand. This depravity, this sexual indulgence, the greed, the the decadence, and at the same time the abuse of the poor and the vulnerable. Because, the poor widow isn't welcome at their orgies. She's not. These are not the people they invite to their parties. Um, she's despised, and they hold her in absolute contempt. This is what Rome has become, and now you see this is what Jerusalem has become, and you'll start to understand why judgment is coming upon them. So maybe this is a good place to stop, because I think it's going to get into a lot coming up next of his judgment on the temple and upon Jerusalem. So any last comments before we close this out, the session here? Okay. Great.